Hello and welcome, my name is Random Gamer Riven and I'm actually going to give you a quick tutorial on how to play Cyforce and just a bit about the game itself. So this is of course Cyforce 2012 and we've already covered the game in a previous video where I played through as Burn, the final hidden character. So I thought I'd actually talk a bit about the design in this video. Now this is an arcade mode playthrough, our previous mode was story mode. So I thought I'd actually go through and just have a bit of discussion about the game itself. And discuss how it plays, because I've always liked design. That's one of the fields I have a real heavy understanding in games, and just how games like this did well and didn't necessarily do so well in terms of their design. So Cyforce is certainly a very interesting twist on the one-on-one beat 'em up. It actually plays really nicely. You can see. But one of the key areas it's really let down in is the balancing, and that's one of the reasons why I picked this character, Setsuna, as although he is just one of the standard characters, he's available from the start, he is incredibly powerful. You see those dagger spears, and you'll just see how much damage they do. And this is actually one of the big problems with Cyforce, is the game is incredibly unbalanced. I mean, see those daggers there, charge up. I can use them again. In fact, I can throw two straight off the bat. And there, I've beaten him down in less than a minute. Poor Genshin didn't stand a chance. And I think this is one issue Taito had, because this is a game that basically Taito never really did one-on-one beat-em-ups during the early 90s when games like Street Fighter first started to appear in the Fatal Furies. And as a result, Taito were very late to the party. And it's clear to show in this one, although this is a game that it came from 97, and this is in fact, of course, a sequel to the original Cyforce. This is very, very unbalanced. I mean, I just need to do those dagger attacks every time, and I'm just tearing his health apart. What I think the problem is that, although you've got a great range of moves, there's no there's no real difference between super moves and standard moves, and you can just turn out a lot of these fairly brutal moves just by a little charge of the bar. And one of the other thing is the bar charges really quickly, so there's no really disincentive. It's not like you can't pull some of these moves off once or twice. These moves are really quick and easy to pull off, and the charge bar is really, really fast, so there's no as I would say, there's no risk reward. Usually that you have a risk reward factor where there's a risk that you need to charge up for a long period of time in order to perform a move or something. Or the gun, let's say with like an FPS, the gun may be slow at firing, but the reward is it does a lot of damage. Whereas a fast firing gun does less damage, but you're going to need to hit them a lot more times. And that's a risk reward factor that some games have, and a good balanced game does. This, I mean, it's like in Street Fighter, you know, how well a fireball does. As you see there, Setsuna is just absolutely... I'm just turning out these attacks left, right and centre. And I'm just destroying the opposition. I mean, you do 8 matches in arcade mode, so this is arcade mode playthrough. There isn't much of an ending either for arcade mode, so if you finish this in the original arcade, because it's actually based on a 97 arcade game, I'm not exactly sure what Taito board it is. I think it's related to... It might be the same... It's certainly something to do with the PS1 boards, because Taito generally used the PS1 games, but this is actually graphically superior to the sort of standard stuff, and the original PlayStation couldn't do an arcade perfect rendition of this. However, for an early Dreamcast game, it does look very dated. I mean, I think that was one of the problems. It came out in 97, and it looked a bit dated in 97. Especially considering I think Model 3 was out by then, in comparison. Another issue I have with Cyforce 2012 is the fact it's really easy. Every time you hit the enemies, you'll notice if you impact them on the wall, they go into a prone stance as like a bonus reward. Now that means they are then subsequently really vulnerable. You can basically do a follow-up attack, and the recovery time is just too slow for a good beat 'em up. There's far too much delay. I mean, you see there, you whack him against the wall, and then it takes a while, and you can basically infinitely combo them. So they're probably actually managed to avoid that one. Again, as you can see, I'm just shooting off these daggers, and they do ridiculous amounts of damage. I mean, every character plays differently in this, and every character generally has an attack that does about a third damage to their health, and for a game like this, it's just preposterous. You really want to beat them up, I think, about 1/4 max. I mean, sure, combos should be able to do more up to a certain point. I think even combos, you should never be able to allow an infinite combo. There should always be a good game that actually has a really system to prevent that is BlazBlue, where basically once a combo reaches a certain amount, even if it's infinite, it will stop taking off damage. So basically, if it gets about a third, I think in BlazBlue, you won't do any more damage even if you carry on doing it, so you're forced to actually fight. So you at least give the opponent a chance. And a system like that is what this needed. I mean, it's a nice game. I think had it had more balancing, I think this could have been a real success. As it stands, I never saw this game once in the European arcades during the 90s. By that point, we were just dominated by Tekken, Virtua Fighter, and games like Soul Calibur. I mean, this was also a sort of late 90s game, and by that point, you were beginning to see the decline of the arcades as well. We went from sort of I think the early 90s very successful, but gradually you were starting to see the decline. I mean, some of these character moves are just so overpowered in this, as you can see there. Actually, Wendy, who you just see me, who was just fighting it, she has a grab move that's basically half screen. That's ridiculous range, and the range on it actually gets bigger as it's like a tornado spin. But Setsuna with these shadow daggers is just so... I mean, he's got a few other attacks there, but the setup time for like this dagger one is so slow in comparison to this one, which is the shadow daggers that I keep using. There's no real point in using it, and this is a real balancing issue. Again, you see the charge there. I mean, it's only seconds to charge up your bar. There should be like I said, a risk-reward factor. It should take longer to charge the bar. And I also think it probably should have supers, so some of these moves should have been reserved for supers only. And this is the problem, there are no supers, it's purely how much psi energy you have, and as your psi energy bar builds pretty quickly, you can pretty much use the advantage. Again, the other thing with this is, with Setsuna, is you can use basically a trap, so fire that, you pin them, and then you fire on the shadow daggers. Now, I noticed Setsuna was incredibly difficult when I played as him. When I was playing against him, I thought this guy's really overpowered using these daggers, and then of course as soon as I actually play as him, I realised how broken he is in this game. Some characters aren't as broken as others, but it's an interesting experience. Now, I should say the arcade mode, I think they're preset lineups. This is the same lineup I did before. This is actually the second time I recorded this video, as unfortunately the first time Elgato's captures voice live commentary went a bit awry, and that's actually an issue I've noticed with live commentary. It does not like capturing live commentary and video at the same time particularly well. Now, I really enjoyed this, and yes, it's a bit unconventional, yes, it's got its flaws, it's very unforgiving for beginners, but if you fancy something that's a bit different and you've got a mate and you're prepared to get to know the system together, then I highly recommend this. Now, this is Cyforce 2012. It was also, there are two games on the PS1, Cyforce 1, which is the original arcade game, and Cyforce 2, which is actually a cut down version of 2012 with the 3 missing characters from the original game. Basically, Cyforce 2012 is missing 3 characters from the original game, but you gain a number of additional ones. I think there's about 5 or 6 extra characters over the original game, but you lose 3 of them, and they're basically added back in. This was also released as the Cyforce Complete Collection on PS2, and that actually features 2012 EX, which includes the missing characters as well. So in theory, 2012 EX is probably the best version to go for, but that was only released in Japan and on the PS2, so you're going to need a Japanese PS2 or a modified one. The Cyforce Complete is definitely the definitive version. It includes both the original arcade game, 2012, and 2012 EX. Again, there's also a Cyforce puzzle game for a bit of trivia. That's another really obscure Japanese PS1 release. And unfortunately, Cyforce for the whole didn't get released in the US. I think Cyforce 2 certainly didn't on the PS1, and as I said, the Cyforce Complete Collection was only released in Japan on the PS2. So this series is a bit mixed of its release schedules, and that's always a kind of a death nail when it doesn't get released in all regions in all the games. We discussed it previously in a feature on the sort of whole FromSoft Dark Souls series, Kingsfield, where basically half the series didn't get released originally, so when it took ages for the series to get any hold in the West. That's possibly a problem with this as well. I mean, it's a nice game, I do recommend it. It can be picked up relatively cheap, so it's not going to break the bank. And if you're interested in something a bit different, yes, graphically it's not the best game, and I think it was a bit hampered for that in '99, because back then a lot of the reviewers were very much, oh, the graphics aren't as good as such and such, so we'll give it a really bad review, which was a really unfair reviewing tactic. Another classic one, oh, the game's got a bit slow down here, so we must give it a absolute roasting for no apparent reason. And I think that's a real shame. But this is actually worth it if you like the game. It's certainly a bit different, so if you fancy something a bit different, I highly recommend it. Yes, it's a bit broken as you saw my playthrough Setsuna, but if you're willing to spend some time with it, it's still quite good fun. So I do recommend this pickup. It's a nice game, and I hope you enjoyed this little quick take on the design of the game. It's certainly very interesting. It has its flaws, but it's certainly worth a play. And that's me, Random Gamer River, signing off for now.